Okay, so I had some news from Hong. Unfortunately, she can't make it today. Something came up that she couldn't avoid. So what we'll do now is we'll jump straight into SPDX Lite. I'm just going to start sharing a screen about SPDX. And I'm going to give you a little context. SPDX is a software bill of materials. It's been around for 10 years. It is now getting used in more places, for example, around the Linux kernel and build projects like Zephyr. SPDX is regarded as quite useful, and for example, the US government is beginning to include it in recommendations through an agency called NTIA. You may know NTIA. If you don't, it's the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, so they have quite a lot of power over influencing, purchasing in this space. Now, SPDX just released version 2.2, and this version may become an ISO standard, or perhaps the version immediately after, and it would become an ISO standard quickly, like OpenChain. So we should pay attention to SPDX. What is interesting about SPDX 2.2 is that using the whole standard is, quite frankly, complex. And many people only use a small part, like license identification. Now, several Japanese companies got together to discuss how do we use a smaller version of SPDX? How do we use a subset that can be fitting actual and current workflows without too much weight, without too much burden? So the goal here is really to have SPDX Lite as a very practical way to use the software bill of materials. Now, I know we have a few people from our Japan work group on the line. I just wanted to check if any of you want to talk about SPDX or if I should talk it through. Now, I'm very happy for one of you to give a comment on SPDX Lite, but no pressure. I'm just pausing here to give people a chance to unmute if they want to talk. All right, I will proceed. So SPDX Lite is a way to make quick documents for software bill of materials. And perhaps this can be confirmed by Shimada-san or Kato-san. One of the key things about SPDX Lite is that it's easily usable with a spreadsheet or similar. So it fits into quick ways of working together. And because it fits into things like spreadsheets and it's not just in XML format, it can be used in automation and similar much more quickly than the full SPDX standard using XML and processing. This matters a lot to companies with large code bases. So if you're updating, let's say, your custom version of Android, and you need to scan a couple of million files, using XML is, quite frankly, very slow. So SPDX is designed to support human-readable and automation around dealing with your software bill of materials in your supply chain. The reason you might want to become aware of SPDX is because it's more than a concept. It's something that companies like Toshiba, Fujitsu, Hitachi are deploying to market. So it's something that is very practical, 100% based on actually using it in your market. So this means that the supply chains of these companies will also be encountering SPDX Lite. and at some point using it to sell to these companies. On the screen, I'm showing the format of SPDX Lite. So the main part is that you have a mandatory document creation. So it tells you the SPDX version, so the version of the standard. It tells you the data license, an identifier, which can be used in automation, document name, namespace, creator, and the time created. These are to make sure that it's compatible with the full SPDX standard, so that a tool using the full standard can also use SPDX Lite, and you can mix documents. If you're using the full standard and SPDX Lite, you can use a unified view to understand all of the approaches across all of your engineering teams. When it comes to the actual fields used, it's kept very basic. These are the fields. So you have a list of fields, which is quite modest. It's not a huge amount of information in SPDX Lite, but it's certainly the right amount of information to know what is this software, what is the version of this software, how did I analyze it, and what's the license. And really, that covers most of the use cases for dealing with software bill of materials. In other words, if you use SPDX Lite, you probably have enough information for a successful software bill of material, for compliance, for security, and for easy transfer between companies. SPDX Lite was basically built for issues like compliance, but it is equally useful for security, export control, and so on. That's because the main questions in security and export control are, what is this package? What's the version of it? And then you ask questions like, do I know if this package is on an export control list or not? Probably, and this is my guess, my personal opinion, SPDX Lite will be the way that many companies, maybe most companies over time, use a software bill of materials to discuss with their customers and suppliers. Because it's light, you should be able to use SPDX Lite on custom software very quickly. And major projects like the Linux kernel are putting the most important SPDX fields into all of the source code, so that when you're using something like the Linux kernel, you'll also be able to use SPDX quickly and easily. One of the main reasons I wanted to mention it today is because SPDX will be the second Linux Foundation ISO standard after OpenChain. At least that's the plan. So you can expect this to be an ISO standard very soon for software bill of materials. This does not mean that you have to use it, but it does mean that it is being prepared to be mature. It's something that you can definitely communicate with companies like Toshiba, Fujitsu, and Hitachi about. And you are very welcome, not only to consider being a user, but also to help evolve SPDX Lite. This is a new section of SPDX. And this is a section where, as more companies use it, we will learn how to make it better. Not more complex, better. It might be perfect as it is, but it's the right time to talk. SPDX 2.2 came out about 2 months ago. SPDX 3 is being prepared. The only question is, which one will become the ISO standard? And that depends on SPDX 3 release date. If it's too long in the future, then it probably will not be the ISO standard. If it comes out in late summertime, let's say August or September, then it might be the ISO standard. Regardless, you can join the SPDX project very easily. You can contribute, and right now, is a very good time. I'm just going to put up the SPDX website. You'll be getting links to these things later. It's a really good time because as SPDX prepares to be an ISO standard, your voice can be hugely powerful in this software bill of materials. You can bring experience about automation or manual use, and the standard can be refined and adjusted to match your experience so that it is very practical. I'm going to pause here and give you a moment in case you want to ask any questions. Okay.
Hi, Shane.
Hi.
I'm Jerry.
Hey, Jerry.
I have one question about the SPDX. I know many popular open source lessons has the SPDX format. Does the lessons called Mulan lessons has the SPDX format?
That's an excellent question. Let me check right now.
Okay.
While I'm checking for this, I have a question about Mulan.
Yeah.
Is it a lot of adoption so far? This is just my curiosity. It doesn't have any impact on SPDX.
Maybe we can think about it.
So I don't see Mulan on the list. So my immediate suggestion is it should be there. That's kind of crazy it's not there. So that's a really good question, Jerry. That's a really good question.
Okay.
I'm just typing down some links here for later. That's why there's typing. Okay, so the Mulan license does not appear to be here. Let me just use a search and see if it appears. Oh wait, I'm wrong. It's in a different section. Mulan 1.0 and 2.0 are in the license list. So
okay, good.
If there's any update from 2.0, then it's time to let the community know.
Okay,
I noticed that there are, sorry, go ahead.
I think it's good.
Thanks for that question, Jerry. Important question. I'm just going to check one more detail. I see there are columns here marked with Y or blank, so I'm going to check what that means. Ah, okay. FSF approved or OSI approved. I see that the Mulan license is version 2 is OSI approved, version 1 is not. That doesn't affect SPDX, it's just a note so that people can know for their internal use. Great question, great question. Okay, so Mulan is there. Version 1 and version 2. If there's an update, 2.1 or 3.0, just let the project know. And let me try to bring together how you do that. So when it comes to this, I'll just try to find the get involved thing. Let's try use. This is pure use. How do I get involved? Oh, here we go. Nope. This is where I have to talk with the project about making it easier. Okay, so there's a wiki for the project, and that might be a good starting point for engaging. Yeah, here we are. So it's talking about how you find the general meetings, how you find the other things. So a general meeting is on first Thursday of every month. Oh my God, it's a terrible time in China and Japan. It's 4 p.m. GMT, that's impossible. But there is another meeting, which I don't actually see here, SPDX Asia meeting. I've been on it quite a few times. I have the invite here in general. So the SPDX Asia meetings take place at 8 a.m. China time each month. And I'm going to ask the SPDX project to give us the precise schedule, and I will share it with you so that you can join the meetings if you want. Those are the meetings where you will also meet the companies behind SPDX Lite, because the Japanese companies tend to join those meetings. All right, any further questions about SPDX? Okay, if there are no further questions, I will just mention one area of controversy or competition. There is another standard called SWID, which is also for software bill of materials. And that is already an ISO standard. So there is another software bill of materials standard. Now, why are there two? And if SWID is an ISO standard, why would we also want SPDX to be a standard? Okay, so we have a situation with SWID where it sort of came out of the idea of security and similar things. So it's talking about software integrity checking, installation, blacklists, whitelists, and security operational use cases. So the software bill of materials with SWID is really focused originally from the security side. SPDX is focused more generally on identifying the software and making sure you have things like license information and so on. In practice, SWID is sometimes used in the field for security, but very rare around things like open source. And SWID tags are not what the open source projects are using. The open source projects are using SPDX. In the future, SPDX and SWID will be equally used by the US government. One will have a little bit of a focus on compliance and general identification, that's SPDX, and the other will have a little bit of a focus on security, that's SWID. You can expect them to coexist for quite a while together. However, if you're in the open source community, probably your main focus should be on SPDX. And for practical reasons for deploying today, your main focus should probably be on SPDX Lite. I wanted to let you know this so that you know that SPDX is increasingly involved in discussions with things like the US government. It's being prepared to be an ISO standard. It's being used in areas like the Linux kernel. And it's a good time to get involved because it's still in development, it's still going out there, so you can make a big impact. Okay, pausing here for any final questions on SPDX.
Xiang, I have a question. For SPDX,
I'm so sorry, you broke up on the phone. Could you repeat that? Chris, your comment was broken up on the line. Can you repeat?
Oh.
This is so weird. I can't hear you, Chris. Can you send it in chat and I will answer the question? Let's see if I can, there's the chat. I don't know what's wrong with the audio there. Oh, okay. Chris is asking, can you use this for non-open source stuff? Yes, you can. You can use it for anything. So let me just pluck an example here. In the SPDX license list, Amazon Digital Services license is there. That is not an open source license under OSI or Free Software Foundation. You will find a lot of licenses on this list that are not necessarily open source licenses. Some of them sound like open source, but they're not. And some of them are completely different. So here is an example. Creative Commons Attribution Generic. Nothing to do with open source, everything to do with documents. Here's one that's definitely not open source or even open source friendly. Creative Commons non-commercial, no derivatives. So that says you can't alter the code, you can't alter the document, and you can't use it for any commercial process. So the short answer, Chris, is you can use it for any license if it's on this license list. If it's not on this license list, you can ask the project to include it. And that means it gets an identifier. When it's on this list, it has an identifier that is like this. Every license has a different identifier, and the purpose of these identifiers is to allow automation. Okay, any other questions? All right, if there are no other questions, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for being on this call. It's been great to have another China workgroup meeting. I'm sorry this meeting was totally international focused, but I hope the information about copyright trawling and about software bill of materials will be useful for you. In both areas, you can get plenty of help, support, and you can give help and support. If you want to talk about copyright trawling, you can talk to me direct and I will connect you with the right people. If you want to talk about SPDX, I will be sending details of the SPDX Asia call to our WeChat group. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'm looking forward to our next, oh, sorry, go ahead, Chloe.
Thank you, Shane.
It's been great to have you all here. Thank you for your time. And I look forward to our next meeting next quarter, hopefully face-to-face. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.